Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning, you unlock your phone, and suddenly nothing works. Google Maps has no idea where you are. Your Uber driver can find your home, food deliveries stop, flights begin to lose their routes, cargo ships drift across the ocean, emergency services struggle to reach people in time. Within just a few hours, the modern world begins to slow down. Not because the internet disappeared, not because the power went out, but because one invisible technology just suddenly vanished. Every second, billions of people rely on it, yet almost nobody thinks about it. And even more surprising, nobody pays to use it. The United States built it, spent billions of dollars maintaining it, and quietly lets the entire world use it. For free. But why? This is the story of GPS. Every day, more than 8 billion people wake up surrounded by technologies they never see. Electricity flows silently through the walls. The internet races beneath oceans through thousands of kilometers of fiber optic cables. Satellites orbit silently above our heads. Invisible, constant, always working. And among all these technologies, there is one system that quietly connects almost everything. GPS. Most people think GPS is just that little blue dot inside Google Maps. But that blue dot is only the tip of the iceberg. GPS doesn't just help you find a restaurant. It guides aircraft across continents. It helps cargo ships carry trillions of dollars worth of goods across oceans. Farmers use it to plant crops with incredible precision. Construction companies use it to build highways, bridges, and entire cities. Even the mobile phone towers around you rely on GPS to stay synchronized. GPS is not simply a navigation system, it is part of the invisible infrastructure that keeps the modern world running. Think about your day. You check Google Maps before leaving home, you book a cab, you order food, you make an online payment, you track a parcel, maybe you board a flight. Every one of these moments depends directly or indirectly on one invisible network orbiting high above the earth. And yet, most of us never even notice it's there. Here is what makes this story extraordinary. Building satellites costs billions of dollars. Launching rockets costs billions more. Engineers spend years designing and testing every spacecraft. Ground stations monitor them 24 hours a day. Old satellites are constantly replaced by new ones. None of this is cheap, which raises a simple question: who is paying for all of this? If GPS is used by billions of people, why isn't there a monthly subscription? Why doesn't your phone ask you to pay before using it? Why has no country ever received a GPS bill? And perhaps the biggest question of all, why would the United States spend billions of dollars building one of the most important technologies in human history only to give it away for free? To answer that, we have to travel back to one of the most dangerous periods in human history, a time when the world was divided into two rival superpowers, and a tiny metal sphere no bigger than a beach ball changed the future forever. 1957, the Cold War began. The world was living under a constant shadow. The United States, the Soviet Union were locked in a Cold War. It wasn't a war fought on battlefields, it was a war of technology, science, intelligence, and space. Every achievement became a symbol of national power. Every discovery sent a political message. Whoever reached the space first could also dominate the future. Then, on the 4th of October 1957, something happened that shocked the entire world. The Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite in human history, Sputnik 1. It was no larger than a beach ball. It weighed just over 83 kilograms. It had no camera, no navigation system, no internet, no scientific laboratory. In fact, all it really did was orbit the Earth and transmit one simple radio signal. That sound echoed around the planet. Radio operators across the world could hear it. Scientists could hear it, governments could hear it, and for the United States, those beeps sounded like an alarm. If the Soviet Union could place a satellite into orbit, perhaps it could also launch nuclear weapons across continents, across America. Newspaper headlines called it the Sputnik shock. People feared they were falling behind. Schools began placing greater emphasis on science and mathematics. The US government dramatically increased funding for research, and within a year, America created a new agency that would change the future forever: NASA. But while the politicians worried about missiles, two American physicists noticed something else. They realized something extraordinary as Sputnik flew overhead. The pitch of the radio signal changed. It became slightly higher as it approached and lower as it moved away. This wasn't a malfunction, it was a well known scientific phenomenon called the Doppler effect. That simple observation sparked a revolutionary idea. If we know exactly where a satellite is and we can measure how its signal changes, perhaps we can calculate where we are. It was a breathtaking idea, one that would eventually lead to the navigation systems we now carry in our pockets every day. Ironically, the first step towards GPS wasn't taken by America. It began with a tiny Soviet satellite quietly beeping its way around the night sky. But turning that idea into a working navigation system would prove far more difficult than anyone imagined. The next breakthrough would come not from smartphones but from submarines carrying nuclear missiles. How does the GPS knows your exact location? Imagine you are standing in the middle of a city, holding your phone. Within just a few seconds, a tiny blue dot appears on your screen. It knows your exact location, not just your city, not just your neighborhood, but often within just a few meters. The obvious question is how? Most people imagine that the satellites are constantly watching us from space, as if they have giant cameras tracking every movement we make. But that's not how GPS works. In fact, GPS satellites never see you. They don't know your name, they don't know your destination, and they certainly aren't taking photographs of your car or your phone. Every GPS satellite does something surprisingly simple. It continuously broadcasts two pieces of information. First, its exact position in space, and second, the exact time the signal was sent. That's it. No conversations, no internet connection, just a constant stream of tiny radio signals traveling at the speed of light. Your phone quietly listens. It receives signals from multiple satellites at almost the same moment. Because every signal travels at the speed of light. Even a delay of a few billionth of a second matters. By measuring how long each signal takes to arrive, your phone calculates how far away each satellite is. Imagine standing somewhere in a huge open field. One friend tells you, I'm exactly 10 kilometers away from you. That information alone isn't enough to find your position. You could be anywhere on a circle around that friend. Now imagine a second friend says, I'm 12 kilometers away. Suddenly, those two circles intersect. Your possible locations become much smaller. Add a third friend, and now there is usually only one place where all three directions meet. GPS works in almost exactly the same way. Except instead of friends, your phone measures this distance from satellites orbiting thousands of kilometers above the Earth. In reality, your phone usually listens to four or more satellites at once. The fourth satellite helps correct tiny timing errors inside your phone. Because while GPS satellites carry incredibly precise atomic clocks, your phone does not. That extra measurement allows your location to become astonishingly accurate. Those atomic clocks are among the most accurate timekeeping devices ever built. They lose only tiny fractions of a second over many years. Without them, GPS simply couldn't work. Time, not maps, is the real secret behind GPS. Today, more than 30 GPS satellites continuously orbit our planet. Every second, they send billions of invisible signals toward Earth. Most of us never notice them, yet every time we unlock our phones, hail a taxi, track a delivery, or land an aircraft, those silent satellites are working together with astonishing precision. It's one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. But here is the fascinating part: GPS wasn't created to help people find coffee shops or avoid traffic. It was built for something far more serious. It was designed for war. On the night of September 1st, 1983, a routine passenger flight took off from New York City. Its destination was Seoul, South Korea. The aircraft was Korean Airlines Flight 007. On board were 269 passengers and crew, families, business travelers, students, children. For everyone on board, it was supposed to be an ordinary journey. But somewhere over the vast Pacific Ocean, something went terribly wrong. A small navigation error caused the aircraft to slowly drift away from its planned route. The crew had no idea how far off the course they had come. Minute by minute, the aircraft entered restricted Soviet airspace. At the height of the Cold War, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were already dangerously high. Soviet radar detected the unidentified aircraft. Believing it might be an American spy plane, fighter jets were scrambled to intercept it. Then, a decision was made. Missiles were fired. Within moments, Korean Airlines Flight 007 was destroyed. All 269 people on board lost their lives. It remains one of the most tragic aviation disasters of the Cold War. The tragedy shocked the world. It also raised an uncomfortable question. If accurate satellite navigation already existed for the military, why couldn't civilian pilots use it too? Just a few weeks later, US President Ronald Reagan made a historic announcement. Once the GPS system became fully operational, it would be made available for peaceful civilian use around the world. His hope was simple: that no civilian aircraft would ever again become lost because of inadequate navigation. It was a remarkable decision. Military technology developed during the Cold War would eventually guide civilian aircraft, cargo ships, ambulances, and billions of smartphones. But there was still one catch. GPS signal available to civilians wasn't nearly as accurate as the one used by the US military. The world's most advanced navigation system had been opened, but only partly. The full story was still waiting to unfold. If America wanted the world to use GPS, why intentionally make it less accurate? And what changed in the year 2000? That suddenly made GPS dramatically more precise for everyone. That is the story of selective availability. By the late 1980s, GPS was beginning to expand beyond the military. More researchers, pilots, surveyors, and engineers were starting to use it. But there was one problem: the GPS available to civilians was intentionally inaccurate. Imagine trying to navigate through an unfamiliar city, but your location keeps changing from one street to another. Sometimes you're 50 meters away from your actual position, sometimes 100, sometimes even more. The satellite wasn't broken, your phone wasn't broken. The error was being added on purpose. This feature was called selective availability, or simply SA. It was a deliberate decision by the United States military. The satellites transmitted highly accurate signals, but for civilian users, tiny timing errors were intentionally introduced. Those tiny errors translated into large position errors on the ground. Meanwhile, the US military continued using the full, highly accurate version. From a military perspective, the reasoning was simple. If a hostile nation ever tried to use GPS during a conflict, the United States didn't want its own navigation system helping an enemy target military forces with pinpoint precision. So, civilian GPS remained useful but not perfect. Then the world changed. GPS were no longer just a military experiment. Businesses had begun building entire industries around it. Airlines depended on it. Shipping companies depended on it. Farmers increased crop yields using Precision navigation. Scientists mapped earthquakes. Emergency services reached people faster. Around the world, millions of lives were already benefiting from GPS. On May 1st, 2000, a decision was made that changed navigation forever. US President Bill Clinton ordered the permanent removal of selective availability. With a single policy change, the artificial errors disappeared. Overnight, civilian GPS became dramatically more accurate. Suddenly, ordinary people could locate themselves within just a few meters. Surveying became faster. Aviation became safer. New businesses began to emerge. Technologies that had once seemed impossible suddenly became practical. Ride sharing apps, food delivery services, precision farming, drone photography, fitness tracking, smart logistics, modern navigation, none of these industries would look the same without accurate civilian GPS. A decision made in Washington quietly transformed everyday life across the entire planet. But that still leaves one question. If GPS had become so valuable, why didn't the United States start charging for it? Why continue paying billions of dollars every year while the entire world used it for free? So, after everything we have learned, we are back to the same question. GPS costs billions of dollars to build. It costs billions more to maintain. New satellites must be launched regularly. Ground stations operate around the clock. Engineers constantly monitor the entire system. So, why is it still free? The simplest answer is this: because charging for GPS would actually make America poorer, and keeping it free makes the United States and much of the world far more prosperous. Think about what GPS makes possible. Every day, millions of trucks deliver goods more efficiently. Cargo ships follow optimized routes across the oceans. Airlines reduce fuel consumption by flying over precise paths. Farmers grow more food using fewer resources. Construction projects become faster and more accurate. Delivery companies reach millions of people and their homes. Every one of those improvements saves time, saves fuel, and saves money. Then came an entirely new digital economy. Ride sharing services, navigation apps, food delivery, logistics platforms, fitness tracking, fleet management, emergency response systems, entire industries worth hundreds of billions of dollars were built on top of one free technology. GPS wasn't the final product. It became the foundation on which thousands of other innovations were built. There was another benefit, one that was even more strategic. When countries around the world built their transportation systems, their airports, their shipping networks, and their countless technologies around GPS, they also became connected to an American operated system. That gave the United States enormous influence in global standards, technology, and international cooperation. Keeping GPS open wasn't just an act of generosity, it was a long term strategic decision. Think of it this way: a company gives away an operating system because it knows thousands of businesses will build on top of it. GPS works in a similar way. By providing the infrastructure, innovation happens everywhere. Businesses grow, economies grow, trade grows, and everyone, including the United States, benefits from that growth. Today, GPS quietly supports a global economy worth trillions of dollars. Every second, invisible signals from space help people make decisions, move goods, save lives, and create entirely new technologies, all without spending anyone a monthly bill. But GPS is no longer alone. Other nations watched its success and decided to build navigation systems of their own. Europe, Russia, China, India each followed a different path, and together they are shaping the future of global navigation. So, what happens? If GPS suddenly stops working, could another system replace it? And why has the world built multiple satellite navigation systems instead of relying on just one? That is the story of the future of navigation. If this documentary changed the way you think about GPS, you will enjoy what is coming next. And in the next episode, we will explore what happens if GPS suddenly stops and whether the world could survive without it. Subscribe to Project Atlas so you don't miss it. Thank you and have a nice day.